In this movie, we'll look at how one state machine can be nested inside another as a submachine. Firstly, we'll look at how you can show the submachine in a compartment in the containing state, and then we'll look at how the submachine can be in another diagram, which makes it reusable across the model. We've already been working with an example of a nested submachine in the display page state, which contains the sub-state machine that consists of the state room list, device list, on-off device info, and open-close device info. When a transition goes to a state that contains substates, the transition can go directly into the state to one of its substates, and the state machine will start executing there, as we've done with the transition to room list. Alternatively, the transition can go to the boundary of the state, and the state machine nested inside it will begin execution depending on the default state, which is indicated here by using an initial state in the submachine to control where execution starts. It's also possible to create a separate diagram for the nested state machine. This can be in the same package or elsewhere in the model. Having it elsewhere in the model makes it possible to use it as a reusable state machine that can be referenced from a number of different state machine diagrams in the model. The fact that a state has a nested state machine in a separate diagram is shown by the use of the hidden decomposition indicator icon, which is in the lower right part of the state open-closed device info here. Now we'll add some nested states in Enterprise Architect. We'll continue working with the directly control device via browser use case state machine. First, I need to make some space in the diagram to add some states inside on-off device info. I'll just tidy up the diagram. So I've moved the frame and I've made some more space in the display page state and the on-off device info state. Now I'll add a state called on. So I click on state in the toolbox and then in the space I've created in on-off device info, I name it on. I'll add another called off in the same way. And I'll add an initial pseudo state, which doesn't need a name. I'll decrease the size of these states. Now I need to add some transitions. The first is from the initial pseudo state to on. When the user selects a device and the on-off device info is displayed, the device could be in the on state or the off state. I'll make it explicit that the display goes into the appropriate state based on the state of the device. So I'll add a guard on the transition from the initial state of device state equals on, device.state equals on. You can see the guard is displayed in square brackets. I'll do the same with the off state. Device.state equals off. Now I need a transition from on to off called switch off and off to on called switch on. So this one is going to be called switch off in the trigger. And this one's going to be called switch on in the trigger. I can add behaviors associated with these triggers in the user interface. I'll go into the switch on transition and select effect is a behavior. It allows me to browse through the model to find the switch on operation of on-off device. And I'm going to associate that as a behavior with this trigger. Similarly, I'm going to associate the switch off operation of on-off device with the trigger switch off. So there I've added a submachine that's visible within the state. I could add one that's hidden and shown in a separate diagram. In the toolbox, there is an element for a state with a nested submachine, which I could add to the diagram. But I want to add one to the existing state, open-closed device info. So in order to do that, I right-click and select New Child Diagram, Composite Structure Diagram. You can see the icon has appeared on the state. Then I double-click to drill down into the lower level diagram. You can see that it's put a frame there for the diagram. Now I'll add an initial pseudo state, which doesn't need a name, and two states called open and closed. This diagram is going to be very similar to the one for on-off device info. I need transitions from the initial pseudo state to the two states. And the guard on that one is going to be device.state equals open. And the guard on this one will be device.state == closed. I also need to add transitions from open to closed and closed to open. First one there, from open to closed, will have the name close as the trigger, and I'll associate the operation close of open-closed device with it as a behavior. I'll do the same for the other one, which is open, and with the open operation of open-closed device associated with it as a behavior. So I've closed up the space in the frame, and there's the diagram. So in this movie, we've added nested substate machines. In the first case, showing the nested substates in the same diagram as the state that contains them, and in the second case, showing them in a separate diagram.